Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.
Many applauding people. Welcome to Talk Heathen, the show that brings theists and atheists together in a foaming jacuzzi of amiable dialogue. I'm joined today by Johnny P. Angel, my favorite of all the angels.
Oh,
Johnny, lovely to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Lloyd. Good to be here with you.
The Talk Heathen show, of course, is, I must say, a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of religion and government. There are ways to support Talk Heathen and the ACA. You can become a member. Click the join button below this video. You'll get custom chat icons and you'll be immune to the chat frequency limits. Immunity is something we should all be going for, sort of a herd immunity, if possible. You can also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me. Johnny, I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to some compelling arguments against atheism. Who knows? Maybe this is the show where we'll hear them.
This could be the one. This could be the one where everything changes. But, before we get to calls, Lloyd, did you hear about that global prayer to end atheism? It was going around social media for a while.
It vaguely rings a bell. Was that even a thing? Did people really pray?
I don't think it was actually real. I think it was just a prank by some goofs online to make fun of theism. And of course, we don't do that here, but we do have a few laughs at some of the more outrageous claims by theists and theist adjacent folks. But I didn't try to pray my atheism way. I don't know if you did.
That's fair. Maybe, yeah. Okay. So do we need to try? Is this something like we should experiment with?
The word behooves comes to mind. And I think it behooves us to...
There's that word.
There's that word again. It's
we get
following
100
me.
points for saying that word in an episode. So
Right.
I've been told by the ACA.
Put that in your bingo card. Behooves. I think we should try. I think we ought to give it a try.
Okay.
You want to try?
So are you going to pray, or tell you what? You pray first,
okay,
and you do like a generic Christian prayer or whatever, and I'll do a Jehovah's Witness prayer, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right, let's give it a try. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, who art in heaven. I guess that's a little too Catholic-y, but anyway, back up. If you're out there and you can hear me,
Johnny, you're talking to the divine. Show some respect.
All right. Blessed Father, who is a man, blessed Father, please take away from me this doubt that you exist, sir.
That's
it. That's it.
Aren't you supposed to say amen?
Amen. Amen.
You're such a rookie when it comes to praying. Here's how it's done. Here's how it's done, Johnny.
All right.
Dear Jehovah, our Heavenly Father, we value the opportunity to approach you now in prayer. We ask that all who renounce you, dear Father, who fail to acknowledge your power and authority, may do so now, so that all who lack belief may become believers. We pray this now through the name of your dear Son, Christ Jesus. Amen. That's how it's done.
That was pretty good. I'm rusty, I'll admit it, but wait a second.
So,
hang on. Wait. Actually, I think I feel something.
What?
But not in a Thursday way. Wait. What?
Where am I? What's happened?
Oh,
Wow.
okay. It worked, Lloyd.
Oh, at least I am in the presence of the organization's true materials. This I don't know what's happened, but at least I'm surrounded by spiritual food, so that's a good thing. Hang on a minute.
Well,
You've got crosses there. You're part of Babylon the Great, the harlot of false religion. Listen,
what?
it's okay. I don't know who you are, but I have the truth. All you need to do is have a Bible study with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I can teach you why
Jehovah's
your crosses
Witnesses.
are
Hold
wrong.
on a second. No. I was just going to say I got to go rush out to get some sacraments because I'm going to be welcomed back into the Holy Roman Catholic and Apostolic Church, the one true faith, the universal faith. Lloyd.
This is the false religion, unfortunately, my friend.
False religion? It's an unbroken chain from Peter to Pope Francis. What are you talking about?
But did you not read the part of the Gospels where Jesus warns that the weeds would enter in among the wheat? There would be a grand apostasy from the true way. But don't worry, Jehovah's Witnesses have figured out what true Christianity is as determined by Jesus, and I can share it with you if you'll study with me.
I don't need Jehovah's Witnesses stuff. What I have is my local church leader who tells me exactly what I need to believe. But wait, hold on.
Whoa.
Something's not right.
Feeling weird. What's happening?
I feel energy leaving my body.
That was weird. What just happened?
I don't know. I'll tell you what though. That was kind of fun. I think I might. It's a safe way, kids. Experiment with religion. It's a safe high. What could go wrong?
In moderation.
Always in moderation. Don't ask your parents' permission before trying it.
Well, I think we've proved that in some cases it is possible to pray the atheism away. So a bit of a bombshell beginning to the show, but perhaps we should get our first caller underway.
I think so.
Let's hear from David from California, who seems to suggest that Jesus sustains the cosmos. David, you are on Talk Heathen.
Hey, it's a good service.
We try to provide the best service.
Yes.
Certainly a value for money service here at Talk Heathen.
Yes. A quid pro quo.
Okay. The check is in the mail.
Yeah, that's expect nothing less. What do you got? What do you got for us today, David?
Well, I've got indisputable evidence that there's a supernatural realm and a creator, but I have tried to give this before, and Matt said I gave a huge preamble. So I'm going to make a prediction.
Wait, real quick. I'm writing this down. Indisputable evidence of
that's kind of the holy grail right there.
Creator and spirit realm. REALM for those at home who are also writing things down on a notepad. Okay. Let's have it. No preamble.
Supernatural realm, whatever.
Oh, sorry. My mistake.
Do you feel you need a preamble in order to give us this evidence? If so, why?
Well, it's not the problem that I have with giving you evidence. It's just that my prediction by the end of the call has always been that the host will say, I'm not qualified to give the evidence, and just hang up on me. So that's what Matt did, and that's what I predict that you will do.
Okay, very good.
So,
now, before you go any further, David, all right? I don't want a preamble. I don't want a prediction. I don't want a complaint. I don't want any of that jazz. What I want, the next thing out of your mouth, not to be too pointed on this, I want you to present the indisputable evidence of a creator and a supernatural realm. The next word should be the first sentence that goes into that. So what do you got?
Okay. So I prove this by proving that from the Big Bang claim, the Big Bang, according to Matt, is the best possible explanation that we have currently going, but it just isn't according to physics. So I proved by the expansion to Matt that requires
is Matt here?
supernatural
Is
realm.
Matt here right now, David?
No, I'm just letting you know that.
Are we
this isn't my
past the
current
2
evidence.
minute
I'm gonna
mark?
give you- I'm just
Lloyd, are we past the 2 minute mark?
I'm giving you the evidence.
so.
David, you're
I'm
going to
giving
pause
you
for
the
a second.
evidence.
David, you're going to pause for a second. All right. And you're right. I did want the evidence, but I'm going to say this. I don't give a fuck about Matt Dillahunty right now. All right. So let's forget
No offense,
about.
Matt.
Yeah.
No
No.
offense.
Well, you know what you can do, Matt. But let's have it. Forget about Matt. Pretend that Matt doesn't exist. I know that he probably takes up a big space in your head, David. He's got a
No, there's
big
not
head.
that much space in there.
All right. What do you got? Forget about Matt. Forget about whatever conversation you had, because a lot of the people here haven't seen that conversation. I don't think I have either. All right. So make it to us. What do you got? Forget Matt.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this isn't my current, but the evidence I offered already that does prove a supernatural realm and a creator is that the claim of expansion, because if you claim expansion, that means that you're something getting bigger, so you're having to create space. So that requires an outside force for the cosmos, because there's nothing to drive an expansion, see, within physics. It has to be an external force. So that was my evidence at that point, and that is indisputable evidence of a creator in a supernatural realm. But what I wanted to give you today was sort of connected to that, and that's just for I think Einstein struggled with this.
It sounds like you're
And
not
why he
remotely
changed his
interested in
position.
whether we're persuaded by your evidence. You've just said your evidence and you're not interested in whether we're persuaded by it. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
No, I haven't given it yet.
Oh, well, but that's
I'm
the
giving you
thing.
today-
That's the thing,
I'm giving
David.
you
I
today's
said,
evidence.
forget
I'm
the
giving you today's
preamble. Forget the preamble. Forget
This
what
is
you
not a
presented in the
This
past.
is not a preamble.
Is it a
The
preface?
duration,
This is-
the duration
that was-
on this call
okay.
is 4 minutes, 33 seconds and counting, and you still haven't given us the evidence. What's stopping you?
Because you keep interrupting.
We're bad like that,
Keep
Lloyd.
interrupting.
We're interrupters.
I know.
You know what? We are what we are. We are as God
Point
made us.
one. Wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Point one.
Yeah. Point one was the expansion, but my evidence today is point two, which is the sustainability of the cosmos, which Jesus does. Jesus sustains the cosmos, because space, being a vacuum or being at zero pressure, has no way to maintain itself. See, I know they claim there's expansion by redshift, but there's no way that matter can drive expansion, because there's nothing to push against. There's nothing that drives it. Okay, so space should collapse upon itself, because there's no way light can sustain an envelope or inflate a container. Even with
Don't
heat.
baffle us with these scientific words, please, David. Remember that we are laymen when it comes to science. I know you seem to speak from a position of having studied science, but presumably at university or college. Which is it? Where did you study it?
No, I don't have any experience either. I just got one astronomy course and 2 years of air conditioning and refrigeration. So you guys are as good as me.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm just giving you the evidence.
Sure.
This sounds. It doesn't sound like evidence,
You're
David.
Say I'm not qualified to give.
David, I'm not going to say that you're not qualified to give, although I think Lloyd and I are thinking it. What I would say is perhaps we're not qualified to understand these obviously demonstrable claims that you're making. They are claims. They are not evidence. I'm going to want you to, David, to go ahead and send to tv@atheist-community.org your work. I want you to show your work. Send it to us. I will read it.
There's no work.
There's no work. So let me ask you this. So the folks that spend, David, the folks that spend bachelor degrees and master's degrees and PhD time and teach courses and spend their entire life studying this stuff, they've just got it all wrong, because you've got it all figured out. Yes?
I know, that's pretty sad, isn't it?
What a waste of time, Lloyd. He's found the shortcut. Sometimes when I'm traveling in different areas and I find like a street that's near my home, and I make a joke that, oh look, there's the shortcut to Main Street. All I had to do was find this, and it leads straight to home, and it's very close. It sounds like you've found an amazing shortcut, David, that can cut through all of that scientific process and research and time that it takes to become actually knowledgeable in things. And you've done this by reading some articles and perhaps watching YouTube videos?
Yeah, just a very little science. Couple days of study, actually.
I'm not going to hang up. I'd rather not hang up. But what I will say, David, is that in 8 minutes that this call has been going on, you've not convinced me. I'm going to hazard a guess that you've not convinced Johnny. What you've basically said is God is real because the universe is expanding and because there's a vacuum in space. And I'm sorry, that's just not going to cut it. And quite frankly, I joke about your credentials versus our credentials. We're all ignoramuses, aren't we, really? Let's be honest when it comes to the finer points of physics. But even by those standards,
No, not me.
even by the standards of none of us going through college and university, the way you describe science is the way I would expect my 7-year-old daughter to describe architecture. Honestly, it was not compelling remotely. So I'm glad you've at least got a laugh out of this call. And all I would suggest is that next time you call in, please just think it through a little bit more as to how you can persuade us, rather than simply saying expansion, vacuum, voila, I've disproved God. It's just not going to work.
It didn't work on me.
Yeah, unfortunately, you guys, physics proves my point. See, that's the problem that you guys don't understand. See, you've already made an appeal to authority, and the call is not even over.
Therefore, all physicists are believers, something that we've learned here on today's show. So thank you so much, David.
That was great.
You're welcome.
Calling through.
Lloyd, it seems like we've finally cut through David's thinly veiled visage or mask, and we've seen that he
out those big words today, aren't you, Johnny? Behooves, visage.
I'm running out of. I know
when you're trying to intimidate your co-host. I know it. I can see it. Go on.
It's coming from a place of weakness, Lloyd. Something, whatever Loki said in that first episode of Loki. But anyhow, that call just seemed like a joke to me. That he knows it's bogus BS, and that he wanted to see if he could.
He was laughing at the end. He was laughing at the end.
Yeah.
So.
Or he's a jolly fellow, a jolly good fellow, and I like jolly good fellows. I like to have a laugh. So I don't know, but we weren't too mean to him, I don't think.
I don't think so. I think we took that in quite good spirits.
No.
Now, with the first call out of the way, can I just do a little bit more plugging? Because below the live chat, we have a fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not charge any fees. Pesky YouTube and their fees. I say down with the man, Johnny. I say let's bypass all of that shiz. And go straight to the fundraiser.
Did you say shiz?
I did. I did. I'm feeling emboldened by your colourful language earlier on that call.
Yeah.
We also now have a channel that hoses down all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. You can visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can also become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Talk Heathen FG. I like it when groups are fan-run rather than run by the bosses, run by the hosts. What do they know?
No. They're like the principal who wants everyone to sit up straight and wear their jackets, and they're going to close down the rec center. But the kids, the fans, the folks out there who actually care about it, they get together, they do a fundraiser with breakdancing and other things, and they keep that community center open. And that's what that group is.
We stick it to the man and we let the fans run things.
I say so too.
So I also say that we take a second call from another theist who claims that a civilization can't exist without a set of religious rules. Chad, welcome to Talk Heathen.
Hey, Chad.
Hello, gentlemen. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Chad.
I'm doing splendid. Little bit bloated, if I'm honest, but otherwise doing okay.
Okay. I'm just going to get right into my argument. I know that color caller was pretty frustrating. Well, basically, my argument for the existence of a God, a creator, is that human beings, in general, and I'm talking about civilization and people, cannot coexist, cannot work with each other, cannot behave rationally to each other without the justification of order. Like, let's say you had kids. You have kids, right? You gentlemen have kids?
Not that I know of.
Okay, well,
I do, and I think they're mine.
Kids.
Yeah.
You gentlemen had kids, and you could rationally see the justification for parents having to discipline their children, right? The rest, we don't like to discipline our children too harsh, but we like to discipline them and let them know that stuff is bad. We condemn bad behavior, basically. If you aren't condemning bad behavior, how exactly are you justifying that certain stuff is wrong?
Okay, well, since I have children, do you have children, by the way?
I do not.
Okay. Oh, so I'm the only one in the Trinity on this call who has children, so I can speak with authority, and you all have to listen to me.
I've always wanted to be part of a Trinity.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is quite the turnaround from how we began the show. Anyway, so yeah, I have children and I do need to discipline my children. But here's what I don't do. I don't say to my child, because you are in this universe due to my procreative powers, because it was my sperm and your mother's egg that brought you into existence, I don't insist on running your life. And I don't insist on you praising me to your dying breath and doing everything that I tell you to do. That's what religions do. That's the difference. And when I give discipline to my... Whoa, you hang on. Whoa, hold on a minute there, Chad. You have thrown an analogy in there regarding parenting, and apparently you're not interested in listening to what a parent has to say about your analogy. That's a bit disconcerting, Chad. So when I'm disciplining,
I'm sorry, I muted him. Chad, I'm just gonna, if you'll sit back and let Lloyd finish his analogy. I will unmute you, which I've just done. Okay, let him finish.
That's the weird thing is it's Chad's analogy, but he's speaking about something that I can speak with authority on because I'm a parent, and he isn't. So when I'm disciplining my child, I'm doing so with logic and reason. I'm not saying, you need to pray to an invisible deity. You need to go to school and tell your teacher that they're wrong about evolution. You need to hate gay people, which are all things that various religions do, by the way. When I discipline my child, it's purely about their safety and their well-being and making sure that they develop and grow into a caring, ethical, kind person that people will want to hang around with, who isn't a jerk. That's what my discipline is aimed at. And it isn't predicated on some assumption that they have to follow my rule and lavish me with praise until their dying breath, which is what most forms of religion require. Now, you're speaking about, can societies run without religion? I strongly disagree, but I think you're off to a very, very bad start with this particular analogy based on my personal experience.
I'd like to hear a little more, Chad. With that as a sort of a framework, please continue.
Okay, well, you said a lot there. Basically, with the argument you presented, you kind of went off topic a little bit. I mean, I am speaking from a religious perspective, but then you started saying that I was a homophobe and that I hate gay people.
No, I didn't.
No, he didn't say that.
Whoa, Chad.
No,
This conversation is going to go nowhere if you put words in my mouth. I'm going to dignify you by not putting words in your mouth, Please do the same thing with me and Johnny. Please.
Gents, can I intervene? And I will. I've just done it. A lot of times, Chad, when people, I'm sorry I'm saying your name a lot. That's kind of creepy. I'm not going to say your name for a while. But a lot of times when people receive criticism for religious beliefs, they feel like it's a criticism of them. What Lloyd was saying is that a lot of religions, a lot of religious traditions have very hostile, harmful, hateful attitudes toward certain groups of people. Lloyd never said that you did. And if you felt that he said that you did, rewind the video and watch it and see that he didn't. But please, continue.
Okay, well, the point I was basically making about disciplining your children is that you cannot allow your child. I know you obviously cannot do horrible things to them to punish them. You have to. There's a line. There's a limit. I'm not going to completely defend the Bible 100% on this. Obviously, I know that's not a good path to go down. I'm saying that you need some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You need some kind of a respect and symbolism from your children. You cannot just allow them to, basically because I'm a free agent, I can do whatever I want. Like that's obviously an unproductive route to go into society. That's obviously why so many other countries are, plummeting.
Chad,
sorry, is there a point? I need you to make a point. You've just said a few things and you haven't made any point with it.
Well, I think I made my point very clear there. I just don't know why we're going to the.
So you're making the statement. You need respect from your children. What's that got to do with religion being needed in order for society to function?
You're making an analogy between the respect that a child must have for a parent's rules and the respect that humans must have.
For a God, that's where I'm getting at. For a guardian or a God. An authority figure, because you cannot have a civilization without some kind of authority figure. I do not believe that human beings can just create their own authority.
Oh, okay. So that's in line with what our caller notes say, which is a civilization can't exist without a set of religious rules. That's a nice claim. I know you said you don't believe that people can do it without an authority figure. I don't accept that as true. We live in a society in the United States and in Europe and in Asia and South America and Africa and all these other places where the people have agreed upon a set of acceptable and unacceptable behaviors with consequences for people who decide to act in one way versus another. Those rules oftentimes are modified by the consensus of a majority of the people in those societies or through their representatives. Like, for example, marijuana is an unacceptable, using marijuana is an unacceptable activity, and therefore it is punishable by fine and or incarceration. And then those people get together and they decide, hey, this isn't the kind of society that we want to have. It isn't very effective in preventing the kind of outcomes that we have. So we're going to legalize it and try to regulate it and try to tax it and do that kind of stuff. So those rules change.
Yeah, but you're saying that society is basically a social contract.
It does seem to be.
We're all being alive because of a social contract we have with other people. That could only be reliant. That could only be reliant on some kind of supernatural being.
Why? Because I'll tell you why I don't smoke marijuana in front of cops is because when it's illegal, because I don't want to go to jail. I can tell you why I don't beat the living
on a primal
side of people.
Even if you don't do it in front of a cop, you're going to know, okay, I'm doing something wrong. You're going to have that feeling. You're going to have that, regardless, that is going to be a thought in your head you cannot control, that you know you are doing something wrong. You are doing something immoral.
So you attribute that feeling that I might, let's switch to marijuana, because I don't think that marijuana use is morally wrong. I think it's just been prohibited in many parts of our U.S. America. But let's talk about striking people, hitting people not because of self-defense or not because of I'm trying to protect someone else. Let's say I see someone, I don't like their face, or they say something that offends me. Why don't I go and hit that person? Well, there's probably a lot of reasons why I don't do that. One is because it's illegal and I don't want them to sue me and I don't want to go to jail or I don't want to pay a large fine. Two, if it's for no good reason, that's not my dander isn't up because they've said something. I don't do it because I am a human being. I exist both as an individual and as a component in society. I am a social being like all other human beings. And I would suspect an instinctual desire for cooperation between me and other human beings. I have compassion. My feelings of sympathy flare up when I see starving children or sad little kids or people who are going through hard times. You would attribute that sense to a deity who is implanting me with those thoughts, with those sensations, with those feelings. I don't see the need for it because I don't know that deity exists. What I see is that like beings, entities that did not have any sense of cooperation in them, as far as evolutionarily speaking, wouldn't be able to tough out the hard times that require cooperation and sympathy and compassion. From all the way down from lower order animals that need to cooperate to function, all the way to higher order animals. So I don't see it.
Yeah, but animals don't function on that basis. And you know why? You know why? Because
I don't think that's true.
I
don't think that's true.
There's a third reason why we don't randomly punch each other, and that's because unless you are a sociopath or Floyd Mayweather, you don't want to live in a society where people can just randomly punch each other, because that's not a fun society to live in. So it turns out that though we were raised to think that you cannot function, though we were raised to think that you cannot live in a society where unless there are religious rules, unless there is some kind of religious authority dictating things, it turns out that humans have plenty of reasons to not be shitty to each other, even if you take God out of the equation. And by the way, you mention a supernatural entity that gets to be the overlord. Who is the overlord? Which supernatural entity are you advocating for? Are we talking Allah? Are we talking Krishna? Is there a specific supernatural deity that you're appealing to that I've maybe not listed?
Oh, no, it's very much the same. So basically what you are saying, you've gone to social contracts several times. So basically, let's say this. Let's take this analogy. I think people have done it before.
Chad, he asked you a question. Lloyd asked you a question.
Yeah.
Let's answer that first. Which God? Which deity? Chad, slow down. I'm going to mute you right now, Chad. I'm not muting you because I'm trying to dominate the conversation. I'm muting you because I'm trying to make sure that we have a conversation, all right? And I know you have a lot to say, and you're talking fast, and I appreciate that energy. I really do. But let's...
By the way, before you're unmuted, before Johnny unmutes you, let's get some context on this, shall we? And let's think about what's happening in Afghanistan at the moment.
Yeah.
Where a regime is about to take control of an entire country, a regime that will dictate what people can do, to the extent of telling women that they can't have an education, to the extent of executing people because they don't support the regime or because they're gay or whatever. This is an example of a country that is run by supernatural dictates, by supernatural rules, or rules that supposedly come from a supernatural deity. Presumably that's not what you're advocating for.
Yeah.
So exactly which supernatural entity are you advocating for is my question.
Yes, you're off mute, Chet.
I said Jesus Christ. I'm a Christian, sir.
Oh, there we go. So that's the bias. There's the bias straight away. It's nothing about a higher, elevated philosophical conversation about the merits of religious values over secular values. It's purely you wanting to push your religion on everyone else. That's all that's about.
So basically, let's say somebody was in a coma. They were in a hospital bed. I could sneak in there and rape them if I wanted to, and as long as nobody ever found out, as long as they weren't harmed, no harm's been done, right?
No, harm has been done.
No harm has been done. No harm's been done. So nothing. The person didn't know they were being raped. So no harm's been done, right?
Of course, harm's been done. What are you talking about,
Chad? I assume
You
you're
are basing
joking
that
right now. I assume you're being snarky right now. Are you being snarky right now?
No.
Okay.
No, I just find it a little irritating. Several of my questions have been dodged.
Is that actually what you think that atheists believe? Is that no harm has been done when a person in a coma has been raped?
I didn't say that in particular. I said you can make that argument, and it works with atheism.
It does not work with well, listen.
Oh, so we're at the point where we're being insulted now.
Well,
that's what this has descended into.
Chad, you're on the defense. You're complaining that your questions have been dodged. Let's slow this down, Chad, because you're on level 10 of you're on nitrous oxide here, and we're having a conversation here, a nice table conversation. So slow down, dude. All right. One, we live in a society where there are certain individual rights that are respected. We have set down those rules because we ourselves want those rules to be applied to ourselves, right? I don't want to be raped while I'm in a coma, all right? So I and all of the rest of the people in society, the majority of people, I'm assuming almost all people, vote for that being a crime. The invasion of a person's physical space, their personal bodily space, is considered a crime, okay? Because we don't want to take a chance that if no one knows about it, that's not the standard that we apply when we determine if something's a crime. If you can get away with it, if you don't know about it, okay? We've all recognized that rape is a punishable crime, that is a jailable offense, okay? And so it's a crime because I don't want to be raped. It's a crime because I don't want my loved ones to be raped. And I don't want to live in a world where you could get away with something like that. You don't need Jesus or Muhammad or Ahura Mazda for that to be a crime. You can have personal reasons for not wanting a society to allow that kind of behavior, right?
Absolutely, but I believe that dwells beyond personal reasoning. Like that.
Okay.
That's only...
Okay, show me why. You believe that it dwells beyond personal reasoning. So you will agree that there are personal reasons for it. There's practical societal reasons for it, right? So now prove to me why there must, though, be a supernatural reason for that to be a crime. Because I think we've got enough right here.
Well, I said the point I was making was you said that, oh well, I don't want to be raped and everything. Obviously, nobody wants to be raped. That wasn't the purpose. Obviously, I'm saying that there's no I'm saying no harm has been done to this person, no individual harm, and you are basing that I don't want to cause harm to other people. Well, this is a crime that well, at the end of the day, it is fucked up. It is disgusting, and I believe anybody who does it should burn in hell. Obviously. I am saying that basically it's very hard to make a secular argument against the fact that it wouldn't cause harm to someone.
It does. I just made the argument. I don't want to be raped.
Yeah, if you don't want to be raped, you're going to enact legislation to make sure that people aren't raped, whether they're in a coma or not. So there's your secular argumentation. Are you going to carry on beating this dead horse or not? Because you've strayed down a logical alley where you're not making any headway. So where's your reason? Where's your reason for justifying that we all need to live in a society that's dictated by Christian rules, which is what you're now advocating for? Because we've narrowed it down from society needs a supernatural leader to society needs Jesus Christ to dictate things. So where's your logical reason for saying, hey, you know what? Let's ditch secular laws, let's ditch religious plurality, and let's live in a caliphate where we all have to live by Christian dogma, irrespective of whether we believe it or not. Where's your justification logically for that?
Yeah, let's have it.
It was, well, I mean, it was based on it. America it was one of the best countries in the world, and based on Judeo-Christian values.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh no, Chad.
I
was hoping you weren't going to say that.
It all comes out now.
Oh, Chad, you're better than that. All right. Andrew Seidel wrote a book called The Founding Myth. You should go ahead and read that. Also, what are Judeo-Christian values? Are they don't rape, don't steal, don't murder? Yes. Are those Buddhist values? Yes. Are those Zoroastrian values? Yes. Are those human values? Are those values that I have without being religious? Are those, there's that tribe in Papua New Guinea that they didn't know about religion. Was that Papua New Guinea, Lloyd? Maybe you know about that. Where they didn't have a God concept. Please forgive me if I've got the wrong geographical location, but they didn't steal or rape or murder. I know you could say that these rules were written on their heart, but there are practical reasons for not wanting to steal, rape, and murder, except in certain instances you can steal if you're starving to death. This idea of Judeo-Christian values, part of those Judeo-Christian values are things that we actively do not have, like working on Sunday. You're not supposed to do any labor on Sunday. You're supposed to honor the Lord's Day, right? You can't make graven images. You must have only one God. You can't covet things. These are just not, those are not the rules that we follow in this society. And in fact, in most societies in the world don't have those as laws.
We've reached a point in the show where I want to talk about other shows. The ACA hosts several shows other than Talk Heathen. I know it seems strange, but it's true. There are other shows out there, including the non-profits, which you know something about, Johnny.
The flagship show of the ACA.
Some would say. Some would say
that.
Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and a little thing called The Atheist Experience. If you didn't catch all of the shows last week, here's a taste of the things you probably want to go back and watch.
Which I didn't actually mention this to you earlier, Puck, but this is kind of interesting because they are monogamous until the opportunity strikes to not be monogamous.
If this is really what people want to see, and if this is what people really engage with, why am I trying to be all prim and proper? Drink my mug of orange soda with my pinky up, right?
It's basically bikini bottoms. I'm not going to go in full details with the measurement. Basically, it's booty shorts with your cheeks out.
John is making a crazy face there with that ukulele. I am worried about his well-being, but I'm sure he's fine.
For the 19th time in a row, yes, I know that I'm leading people away from God. I've been doing it for a long time. I love leading people away from a God that nobody has demonstrated exists.
So it goes.
What an impressive franchise. It's almost like an ACA universe right there in front of us.
The ACA expanded universe.
Johnny, would you like to know what our top 5 patrons are?
Would I?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
That was yes. Would I?
Okay.
And how?
Oh, right. Okay. So there's Eric Tweet, there's CJ Dennis, there's Dinglebury Jackson, there's Balaam's Donkey, my favorite of all the donkeys. There's Paul Lear, and don't try and stop me, Johnny, I must give an honorary mention to the great North American Dingaloo. So yes, those are all some amazing patrons.
That was the best pronunciation of Dingleberry Jackson that I've ever heard. Dinglebury Jackson.
I've been practicing all week. And if you would like to support the ACA or specifically Talk Heathen on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me. But I don't know about you, Johnny. I want to take another call.
I do. I cannot wait. Please.
How about, have you ever heard of a Kevin from New York?
Yes, I have heard. Let's take him. Let's
Kevin
put old
from
Kevin
New
on.
York. You are on Talk Heathen. What have you got for us?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, you guys. Well, to the call screener, the reason why I brought up the topic of the Apocrypha, well, I know I've been guilty of bringing up random subjects in the past, but I really want to elaborate now on why I really believe in God. having to do with the topic of the Apocrypha.
Kevin,
But
this is
yes.
you, Kevin. I know because I know your voice. Okay, I went back through your previous calls, and when you said, you know that you go on to different topics all the time, you weren't just whistling Dixie, Lloyd. That's a phrase we say.
Okay, I was lost at that point. Go on.
Yeah, you've called. Well, from what I can see, to be a total of 24 or more times. I went through, yes, viewers at home, Johnny P. Angel and Kevin, for your edification, I
He
went
has
through
like a back cave. He has lots of monitors up, and every now and then he likes to do investigations on our callers.
I did a little investigation, as Lloyd's just didn't say. And you've called about 24 times. I may have missed the last couple of calls, but you've talked about the Book of Enoch, near-death experiences. You've talked about how the language barrier with understanding the Bible and how struggles of power throughout history has resulted in the editing of the Bible, thus denominations. You've talked about hallucinations. You've talked about how reality is systems based on systems based on systems, therefore God. You talked about how everyday people can use Ouija boards to access the occult, and how the dietary laws were parables. And I've got dates, I've got episode numbers. Planet X is a star that proves God, with Sol orbits around Sol every 3,600 years. Ancient texts, Nag Hammadi codices, the pineal gland. Oh, the pineal gland. You've talked about the Peter Principle. You've talked about Eric said that we were treating the symptoms by dealing with a new topic every time, but really we should nail down what you talked about in the past, and then you went back into the Book of Enoch, but you didn't identify where you went wrong. You said how math is objective and points to a God. You talked about why we shouldn't check for falsifiability because that might give us a bias for falsifiability. Prophecy, apocryphal texts from the 3rd century. Circumcision has nothing to do with the foreskin, but of the heart, which was a good one. Subconsciousness is the mind of God. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were the authors of the Gospels, but later on you realize that they probably weren't. More about the Book of Enoch, and black holes are contained in the Book of Enoch. The Bible is a trilogy of parables. You talked about the modal ontological argument. You talked about why we should trust military pilots, since they're our best pilots and they have the best senses, and they're telling us about aliens and evidence of non-physical beings. Remember that old one? That was with Dan and Jimmy.
Yeah.
You talked about, do we have complete knowledge of the Bible? That was with J. Mike and Matt. That was a good one. Then you talked about the Testament of Cedrac, and how Cedrac asks questions to God about free will. Then you talk about the Ark of the Covenant with my friend Kenneth Leonard and Matt Dillahunty, peace be upon him sometimes. So now you want to talk, and many, many more, or not. Now today, Kevin from New York, and when I go through this list, I don't mean to, I don't know what I mean to do by that, but
he has the same list about me. If it makes you feel any better,
I do.
He does this. He just makes lists.
Now you want to talk about the Apocrypha, and that seems to be consistent with some of your earlier calls. The problem, Kevin. All right, the problem, Kevin, and we talked about that when you and me and V had a conversation maybe 6 months ago, where we identified the fact that you bring up new things all the time. You never dig down into anything specific. And next week, you're going to call about something else. And the week after that, you're going to call about something else. But the one thing that you never, ever seem to really ever do, Kevin, with much love, is evaluate the method by which you latch on to new things, your epistemology. You just talk about a new idea, a new cockamamie theory, a new thing. So forget about the Apocrypha. No, you're done.
We're doing this because we love you, Kevin.
We love you, Kevin. All right.
I
want to talk about
you
Kevin.
Have a problem. We're here to help you through it.
Kevin, stop. Kevin, stop. My friend, please.
I promise you that I'm really nailing down this time why.
Okay. No.
to
I
get
get it.
to
I
the
get it.
essence on my
Cool.
argument on why I believe in God.
Good. You can talk about that after we talk about this first, okay? Because I do want to hear it. I want there to be, oh, Kevin's calling. We're all afraid. He's about to shake our belief in not believing in things ever at all. So how do you determine whether or not a claim has validity and soundness? How do you determine whether there's substance to something? How? What's your method? What's the process you go through?
Well, it has to be tested. It has to be compared to other opinions. It has to be thoroughly researched.
Very good. You
there's a
said
lot-
tested. You said tested. All right. I want to hear about
Yeah.
one, how do you determine if something is tested?
Well, you either have to do it yourself or you have to do thorough research on the person who tested it.
Walk me through the process.
So you
Okay,
have to do testing on the tester.
I'm Johnny from New York. I open up a Chrome or Firefox or Internet Explorer or whatever window, and I go into Google or whatever I use, InfoSeek perhaps, and I type in, what do I type in? What's the thing I type in? Walk me through the process.
Apocrypha.
Okay, you type in Apocrypha. Okay.
You see, an internet search isn't going to do it, though.
Cool. Why won't an internet search do it?
Simply because you don't entirely know the agenda behind a person who's listening to the information that you're reading.
Okay, wait.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting.
Unless you do thorough research on it.
Okay. How did you arrive at Apocrypha as a searchable term, Kevin?
Well, these are the really big ones for me, and I really want to nail down why it is that I believe in God with the topic.
I know it's nice to want things, Kevin.
Because
I want things too. I'm asking you, how did you arrive at the word Apocrypha to be a searchable term in your quest for knowledge and truth and justice in the American way? How did you get there? Where did Apocrypha come from?
I don't know exactly how I found this word, but to tell you the meaning of it, that's what I first wanted to find out. Was that
so you heard the word and you were curious about it?
And I wanted to find the meaning of it, yes.
Okay, because I that happens to me too. I'm being, this is a real thing. I hear words and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So I go on the internet and I research that word, Apocrypha. And I know a little bit about the Apocrypha, okay? So you started researching Apocrypha. What is it, right? And you did this on the internet, or you went to a library, or you had some books. What did you do?
I both went to the library and I've researched it online.
What's the name of a website that you went to, or what's the name of a book that you referenced when you looked up Apocrypha?
Well, there is sacredtext.com. It's got a whole bunch of stuff that's not even Bible related, but it does list the books that are contained within the Apocrypha.
Okay, sacredtext.com. Cool. So I'm there now. Site can't be reached because I can't spell. So now I'm there. All right. Wit textbooks, which spells, free texts. No, that can't actually be a real website. Hold on. Maybe www.sacredtexts.com. You're going to walk me through this because I want to get inside your head. And there's a rope tied around my waist. Lloyd's got the other end of it. Okay, sacredtexts.com is a domain name that may be for sale. Click here to inquire. So I think you got the URL wrong. Is there another URL you want me to check out?
There is there is a punctuation between sacred and text.
Okay, I'm going to put sacred.text.com.
It might be sacred hyphen texts.
Okay, it's not a period. All right. Sorry, the folks at home, but I think this is important. Sacred-text. Bingo.
If you're just joining us, viewers, we are indulging in an expedition into Kevin's mind.
Have we ever gotten here before, Kevin? Kevin, really? Maybe we have, and I missed it. Have we ever gone to sacred-texts.com together on the show with me, you, V, Jimmy, Dan, anyone? Have we ever done this?
No.
We are exploring new horizons.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So, okay. All right. So we've got some good stuff here, folks. Sacred-text.com. I hope it's not toxic. We got the teachings of Zoroaster, not the shitty Zoroaster from a couple weeks ago.
But is not sponsored by sacred-text.com.
There's world religions.
Listen, I would really like to focus on what I called you guys about.
I know you would, Kevin. I know you would. And like I said, it's nice to want things, but I want to focus on this. Seriously, Kevin. This is a deep vein of really good stuff.
Peace.
Oh my goodness. We've got the Kebra Nagast, however you say, the splendor of God, the teachings of Zoroaster. We've got the Talmud, Native American stuff, I Ching. Folks at home, go to this website. Make sure that you have virus protection, but go to this website. We've got all kinds of stuff. Shintoism, Tantra. I'll be going back here on Thursday and seeing what we have here. How do I... So you saw Apocrypha, cool beans. Why did you not click on Tantra? Why did you not click on Piri?
I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm going to have to side with Johnny here. I would have gone straight to the Tantra.
Yeah. Me and Lloyd, we like to party. And so why did you not go to
there's
any of this stuff
that I've read from there, but
are you starting from A and working your way through Z? Because that's another way to do it. Are you doing it that way?
Sure.
Can I ask a serious question? Can I ground our conversation in something serious for a moment? Okay. Yes. Kevin, earlier when you were talking about your method, and I think it's fascinating that Johnny has kind of taken the conversation on down this route. Earlier when talking about your method, you said that what was important was the agenda of the source. So you want to test, apparently, what's the agenda of the person writing the information. Let's say it's a Wikipedia article on tantric positions. What's the agenda of the person writing the article? Is it to objectively talk about tantric positions, or is it to push these tantric positions on people, for example? So, this kind of logical process, does this apply in any way to the writers of the Bible books or to the writers of the apocryphal books? In other words, are you remotely interested in what their agenda is, in what the Bible writers' agenda was?
Well, of course I am. It applies to everybody. But
so what do you think their agenda was?
As it's not a good source to use in any college paper.
But what do you think the agenda of the Bible writers was?
Well, you can remove all that, and you can just simply ask, "Is this true or not?"
Also,
you know what I mean,
so you don't want to apply that question to the Bible writers.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the Bible writers, you want to remove that question of what their agenda is and ask a different question.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting.
Why would you do that?
First of all, because there's other things to consider. Because when we're talking about the Bible,
is it possible that you're presupposing? Is it possible that you're presupposing that the Bible writers are writing it for a reason other than that they want to control people and feed people a narrative? Is it possible that you're presupposing that the Bible writers are inspired by God and want to impart divine truth, so you're not interested in what their agenda is because you feel as though you already have it?
Sure, that can be considered. That can be considered, but what you just said is subjective to no one but yourself.
Well,
what I'm trying to say
that doesn't
here,
make any Kevin, doesn't make any sense. When we talked about Kevin, really quick, when we talked about the method by which you come upon new information and new theories and new strategies and hypotheses about the universe, one of the first things you said was to try to root out a writer's agenda. And so I want to focus on that because you said it very early on in the conversation, and I think that's very telling. And I think it's important for us to always examine whatever we're doing, what the agenda of the writer is. So let's explore, forgetting about setting aside the agenda of the gospel writers, because you might have a better reason for doing so. How did you determine what the agenda for the gospel writers or the Apocrypha writers or the book of Enoch, all these other people, how did you determine what their agenda was?
Well, you can't, to put it simply.
You can't.
But you can go through the information that's been written down with the assumption that they were lying and the assumption that they were telling the truth without even knowing it. But it has
It's
to
not
be
a binary thing.
at a face value.
It's not a binary thing when it comes. Seriously, look into Bible scholarship. Look into Bible scholarship. It's not a binary thing of are they lying or are they telling the truth. It's far more nuanced than that when you listen to what scholars have to say. We're talking about a time in history when people used to tell stories. And when they told the stories, it wasn't really a question of did this actually happen or not. It was about imparting wisdom using a story and not really questioning whether it was an actual historical story or not. It wasn't about trying to lie to people per se, or not lie to people in this kind of binary on-off thing that you're suggesting. It was far more nuanced. And quite frankly, I can remember some of the conversations that Johnny was talking to earlier. And I think what the picture that I'm painting in my mind is of someone who will go to this sacred texts website far more than he will go to Bible scholars and sit down with a book by Bart Ehrman or a book by Richard Carrier or a book by any number of other Bible scholars
In the consideration.
and learn what actual Bible scholars have to say about these books that you're apparently obsessed with.
I muted him because there was a lot of cross
so
chatter.
Just to absolutely clarify that point, I think he's more interested in what conspiracy theories and tantric whatever are on this website than he is in actually finding out what Bible scholars have to say, bearing in mind that Bible scholars are people who've devoted their careers to finding out where these books come from, who wrote them, when were they written, what were the objectives for writing them. Honestly, when I stopped being a Jehovah's Witness, my study of the Bible became so much more compelling, so much more interesting, so much more fruitful than it ever was when I was a believer. Because it turns out there is so much to learn about the Bible and where it comes from. And when I listen to Kevin's arguments, I'm hearing someone that hasn't done, frankly, the first bit of reading on Bible scholarship. And I feel as though future conversations with Kevin will be far more productive and will get to the heart of the matter far more readily if he accepts the fact that, first of all, he's being presuppositional in ascribing the Bible with things that you shouldn't necessarily ascribe it with. And secondly, if he could just give himself the most rudimentary knowledge of what Bible scholars say so that we don't have to keep schooling him on this each and every time.
Well said, Lloyd. I also detect that you're doing a bit of investigating his motivations in bringing this, which is what Kevin has said was one of the very first things that he does when he investigates a new claim. How interesting that you would do that. Now, Kevin, you are about to be unmuted. So I want to go back to that point. I think Lloyd is exactly right. I think there is substantial amount of Bible scholarship done by folks who believe and folks who don't believe in the claims made by the Bible. And they work together on a lot of things to try to determine certain knowable facts about the writers, or at least facts about how the Bible was written and its influence through history. Now, you said very early on that a writer's motivation, their biases, their perspective, whatever you want, however you want to call it, was a key initial factor for you to consider when investigating a new hypothesis. And you then, when pressed about how you arrived at this sacred-text.com website, and when talking about the Apocrypha and different holy books, said, well, you can't know it, so you skip over it. I'm going to put you back on mute now, Kevin, because I haven't finished my very long sentence. You said you can just set that aside. Well, I wonder why you said that was important, and then you said you can set it aside. I want to know how you determined that their perspective, that their biases, that their what was the word you used to describe it? Lloyd, do you remember what the word was that he used to describe it? Because I didn't write that down. I have a notebook and I didn't write it down.
I'm sorry. You need to write these things down, Johnny. I'm not going to help you out here. You're on your own.
How did you determine, Kevin, that the writer of these apocryphal texts' perspective, their bias, their motivation was what it was? How did you determine it? Don't tell me it wasn't important. How did you determine what it was? Answer that question for me, would you?
The reason why I determined what it was is because it was necessary throughout the historical account of this to take into account the interference that happened when that's not
the answer. That's the answer to a different, very good question that I wish that I could ask at some point in the future. Kevin, I'm putting you on mute again. I'm asking you a very specific question. I'm asking you, how did you determine what the motivation or the perspective or the bias of the apocryphal writers was? What process did you use to determine what their bias was? And what did you determine their bias was? You are now unmuted.
I'm being honest when I tell you that it's impossible to determine their motivation because these people are long past. So we have nothing to go on but what's been written down.
That's not true.
You continues to listen to me because
that's just not true. Simply the fact, sorry, no, Kevin, simply saying they lived a long time ago, so it's impossible for us to say what their motivations are. That just does not cut it. You know, when you devote your career to scholarship, you don't just say, "Oh well, all of this happened so long ago. How can we possibly weigh in on this?" We'll just have to take everything we read at face value, because who are we in the 20th or 21st century to question where this stuff has come from or what their motives were? What I want to do, we're not going to spend too much more time on this call because we do have someone else in the queue, and it's a 90-minute show.
Believe it.
I have actually, if you could just mute him, because I have sat through quite a lot of this, and I do get to say something, surely, as the host. So I just wanted to recommend for Kevin, because I feel, with all due respect to you, Kevin, I think that the points that Johnny raised at the beginning of this call about you kind of being stuck on this loop of just calling in again and again and again and not really getting anywhere. I feel as though there's a solution to this, and the solution is research, and not just research on one website, on sacredtext.com or whatever, or on websites that are going to support your worldview. But let's go to Bible scholars. Let's listen to what they have to say. And while I was off camera, I grabbed a few books from my collection. Here's one, A History of the Bible, the Book and Its Faiths by John Barton. I recently used this in one of my rebuttal videos on my channel, and actually John Barton is a theist. So not all Bible scholars are atheists. There's this book by the late Simon Loveday, The Bible for Grown-Ups. That's a really good, neat overview of where the Bible comes from and how we can learn more about its origins. And a wonderful, wonderful book is The Bible Unearthed by Israel Finkelstein. I cannot recommend this enough. I frequently refer to it in my videos because it really shines a light on, again, where the Bible comes from and the people and geography that it's talking about. So I think in order to stop this just descending into this endless spiral of you calling in and us not getting anywhere, I would really recommend you buy at least one of these books or find a way of reading one of these books or a book like them. In other words, let's bring Bible scholars into the equation since you seem so interested in the Bible, and let's hear what people have to say who've actually devoted their careers to studying this. So I guess that's all I have to say. Yeah.
I like that approach, Lloyd. Kevin, I'm not going to put you back on because I think you know that Lloyd and I just gave you a homework assignment. You can accept it. If you choose to, you can reject it. But next time you call in, and I'm going to be on next week as well, if you haven't, and maybe you wait a week because you don't want to deal with this again, but you're going to be answering the same questions. But I might move on a little bit further down the path, but we're not going to get to maybe what you want to talk about unless we want to talk about the same thing. Although, Kevin, I do appreciate your earnest attempts to have conversations with us. I'm kind of done with the loop. I'm done with it. I know a lot of our viewers are as well. All due respect, we're tired of it. Get something else. But go carefully and talk to you next week, maybe.
Now, I am fascinated to take a call from Pakistan. I don't know about you, Johnny.
I am.
So let's just bring this person on. So we now have Shaw from Pakistan. Welcome to Talk Heathen.
Hello, Shaw.
Hi, Lloyd. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Doing great.
Doing very well, and mindful of the kind of world situation at the moment. Are you? I'm imagining you're quite apprehensive about what's going on over the border.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I know as much as anybody else who watches the news. So let's see.
Sure.
This is one of those situations where, as somebody who is very, very cognizant of American imperialism and its impact, you might be surprised to hear that I'm not entirely sure if I'm happy or unhappy with how things are right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess it's one of those things where we have to wait and see how things pan out. But I just really hope we can avoid the humanitarian catastrophe that I think many people are bracing themselves for. Yeah. So moving on to your reason for calling, I understand you are an atheist and you want to talk about the progressive strategy and how it's done with younger activists in Pakistan.
Yes, that was the best summary that I could get at with the call screener. And what we realized was there was no way for me to frame it without making me sound like both a boomer and a douchebag. But that's the best that we could get. Number one, I just want to absolutely acknowledge my privilege, and that is that despite my sort of intellectual identity as an atheist, which is, of course, quite under wraps at home, and when I say at home, not in my actual home, but like in the country that I live in, I was born a man, major advantage. I was born a Sunni Muslim in Pakistan, a major advantage. So I just want to, number one, acknowledge that. But from there, what I want to go into, and if you'll permit me, and just stop me if you feel like I'm talking too much. I think you guys are quite great at that. What I want to talk about is the obviously different landscapes that, let's say, organized progressives engage in when it comes to the US or Australia, or when it comes to a place like Pakistan, where there's a lot of already existing useful infrastructure and useful politics that exist in a Western country that, for example, would allow a progressive entity or organization to sort of be a catch-all that covers religious freedom, sort of gender politics, LGBTQ rights, and so on. And I want to contrast that with the situation in a country like Pakistan. And what I want to argue is that way too many younger activists in Pakistan, or just vocal voices in Pakistan, or in countries like Pakistan, come from a bubble of privilege. And the result of that is that they absorb their politics from pop culture and from mass media, particularly media that comes in from the West. And instead of recognizing the sort of different situation in a country like Pakistan, they attempt to become catch-all progressive activists or entities within Pakistan, while that obviously wouldn't work. And the reason is not to invoke like Rostow's idea of progress being this linear line wherever you go, but for now, what I would say is that in Pakistan, as a progressive activist, you need to pick and choose what hills you want to die on. And quite frankly, good strategy is in identifying what principles the core audience that you want to convince will be most likely to agree with you on. Because change in a place like Pakistan or change anywhere means identifying a core demographic and convincing them that a certain principle that you uphold is a principle that is good for everyone. So my complaint, or the reason why I just want to rant like an angry boomer, is that I feel that this idea is not being utilized by younger progressives in Pakistan, where instead of realizing that our core audience has to first recognize that, hey, maybe women are equal to men. Maybe acid attacks are a bad thing. Maybe a husband demanding that his wife has to satisfy him isn't okay. Like those are the baselines that we should address before we start getting into whether or not, and this might come across as insensitive, but in Pakistan, we have to do that before we get to whether or not LGBTQ people should have rights or should marry each other. That's pretty much my rant.
Can I just ask a question real quick? Do you identify yourself as an activist?
Absolutely not. So in my past, I have worked with activist organizations, and we did try to uphold this sort of strategic idea that I've espoused, but I don't do that anymore.
Okay, I'm going to weigh in here, and then I'm fascinated to hear what Johnny has to say on it. You know, I do identify as an activist, and I am kind of operating in the sphere of Jehovah's Witnesses. I can only imagine what a monumental task it would be to be an atheist or progressive activist in a country like Pakistan, where you are very much in the minority and where there are pretty significant consequences for sharing your opinions. You know, let's be under no illusions. This is dangerous work in a country like Pakistan. I guess my approach to activism...
Hence the fake name. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm not expecting you to, give a real name or anything. I guess my general approach to activism is this, bearing in mind that I'm operating sort of in a sort of, bubble of, I'm operating in religious fundamentalism of my own, although it's a different brand. My attitude is make the information available, don't shove it down people's throats. So when people come to me and they say, Lloyd, I understand that you have a problem with the governing body or with Jehovah's Witnesses. Do you really have to also speak out against the Bible and belief in God altogether? My attitude is, well, look, I'm making my views available for people that want to come and find them on my specific corner of YouTube. I'm not running down the street racing after Jehovah's Witnesses and insisting that they visit my YouTube channel or insisting that they read my book. In other words, I think a lot of your concerns or objections could do with being contextualized within this context of, are these activists hounding people with this information, or are they merely making their views accessible for those who are ready to hear them? And I get that it's a huge mountain to climb when you're talking about, particularly Islamic fundamentalism and all those issues. Again, I can only imagine how difficult it would be. But if I were doing that work, my attitude would be, well, life's too short. My views are my views. And as long as I'm willing to stand by them, it's not like I'm forcing them down anyone's throats. Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. Would it be okay if I do a short response before we move to
Sure.
Johnny? If that's not,
I'd love to hear Johnny's views, but yeah, by all means, respond. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So what I have in mind is impact, right? So this is a very, very poor analogy, but once we identify a core audience, we have to start with the message that will resonate the most, because the objective that we want isn't, I want to be heard. The objective that we want as activists is, I want to at least bring this sort of small bubble that I exist in, this culture, this society. I want to bring some sort of change, or at least I want to get us on the route or the road to that change. However, if, for example, you come in this sort of, you identify your core audience and you figure out that the most strategic, the best thing to first convince your core audience is that red is a good color. However, if at the same time as you're saying red is a good color, you also start talking about how awesome it is to, let's say, eat poop, the strategic impact of red is a good color is going to fall flat. Now, of course, this analogy is a little unpleasant, but given the core audience in Pakistan that you need on your side to institute some sort of social change, there are some progressive values and objectives that are the equivalent of eating poop for them, such as, we're looking at a demographic here that still hasn't accepted the fact that a woman can say no to her husband in bed, right? And for them, first, I think we need to identify what are the safest values that we can get them to agree on, because it's not a question of all the things that I want as, a progressive person. It's a question of what can I get done in year 1? What can I possibly get done in year 5? And then what can I get done in year 25? And so that's where I'm coming from, is that you can, this is a terrible use of that phrase, but you're kind of poisoning the utility basket that you're presenting to them by bringing in all of the progressive things that you want.
Shaw, I think I'm with you. I think I completely agree with where you're coming from. The example of this is a terrible analogy for those vegans out there, but you put a frog in a pot of water, and if you slowly turn up the temperature, the frog allegedly doesn't notice that the temperature has gotten hot. Whereas if you toss it in, you shouldn't do this. This is horrible. But if you throw a hot,
don't do this at home, by the way.
Yeah, don't ever do this. Throw a frog into a pot of boiling water. It's just going to jump out, and it'll be terribly miserable. But no, I know what you're saying. There's low hanging fruit, Shaw, that we can agree on. I belong to a law school organization that was advocating for animal rights and for various social justice issues, of course, because I did. And I think that we're at a point in even American society, and maybe to a much greater extent in Pakistan, that we need to go for the low-hanging fruit, because we can get a better consensus on something that's more palatable to them. We're never losing sight of the goal of true equality in a particular society, but we can't just go straight for the goal. We're not gonna get consensus. And you're exactly right. Eating poop, it's sort of a weird way of doing it, but let's work on. Let me give an example from animal rights. Okay, a lot of people. Most people will say that animal abuse is wrong and should be a crime. I think it's already against the law for people to do terrible things to animals, torture animals for no reason, right? We've already got a consensus on that. Okay, now let's include more things in that category. Okay, we're going to include cosmetic testing, all right? Cosmetic testing on animals. You're going to find more people that will agree with to prohibit cosmetic testing on animals than you will people who will agree on medical testing on animals, because we do see that medical testing on animals furthers a more important societal goal of advancing medical research and discovery and cures and such. So then now we've got more people to agree to pass legislation prohibiting medical or sort of cosmetic testing on animals, rather than if we did that, if we focused first on that, get that, then move on to the next step, grab that, then move on to the next step, grab that. Not only do we have a better chance of building a consensus all along the way, but we're moving everyone's expectations that this is an acceptable, direction for society to go. Whereas I had people that I worked with in that organization that were advocating for prohibition of eating meat, prohibition of owning animals, giving animals human rights. And they were pushing for that end game agenda, and they were never going to get that to pass in 99 out of 100 places. And so I think where you're going with this, Shaw, and I'm sorry to take the long way around, is when progressive folks in Pakistan are pushing for, let's say, Western style notions of human rights right up in front, you've lost people who are on the fringes who might join you for what we would consider very basic human rights, that women don't have to give up sex to their husbands because they said so, or women should be able to vote, or you can have another religious belief and not be oppressed or not be face serious legal consequences. Are you saying that progressives in Pakistan should really understand that they should be going for low-hanging fruit first, rather than going for American-style progressivism or European-style progressivism first? Is that the gist?
Yes, that is pretty much the gist. Also, although I will be snarky and say that we did get a female head of state before you guys, so ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Oh, you got us there, sure. You got us there. I think we're in basic agreement, though, aren't we? That, if we're going to persuade people, it's best not to go for arguments that we know are going to make them recoil and we know are going to get the discussion off to a bad start. And again, I can only repeat what I said earlier. It's going to be a tough gig being an atheist or progressive activist in Pakistan. So I take my hat off to anyone who embarks down that,
Yeah, and Shaw, I would say that's...
Thank you very much. All I have to do is be quiet. It works most times.
Right.
Well, what I'm seeing, and Shaw, thank you so much. I think we're going to let you go. I want to add a little cap on the end of that. That there is a tendency. When I was younger, I wanted to go for the goal immediately. I would settle for nothing less than the end game. There's a kind of energy and gregariousness that comes with youth, and perhaps with experience. We know that there's a maybe an unfortunate inertia to making the changes that we want.
He's throwing out all the big words today, by the way. Sure, we've had gregarious, we've had inertia. It's just what he does, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, there's a wisdom that comes with experience, and it isn't to say that we're not pushing for the end goal. It's just that we know we've got to get through a few stages before we get to the end goal. And it can be frustrating. It can seem like, oh, you're just becoming conservative. You're just trying to maintain the status quo. No, I'm not. I'm just, I'm in my 40s now. And some younger folks maybe think that if you're not pushing for the end goal, you're not serious about change. It's not true. I'm no less progressive than I was at 20. I promise you, I'm not. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. But thank you so much, Shaw, and lots of solidarity to you and those like you in Pakistan who are wanting to see a more progressive, more secular society.
Yes.
You have our respect.
Yes, you do. Do we want to take Morpheus? I think we should. Let's make it. What?
Oh, okay.
No,
I didn't
I'm
know.
sorry.
I'm only thinking that we want to do a little bit of the after show, or at least I was hoping to, and we're on the 90-minute mark.
Yeah. You know what?
Morpheus, can you call in again next week?
Yeah.
We'd love to take your call. I just need to reiterate some ways that you can support the show. Below the chat, we have a fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not charge any fees, which is how it should be. You can become a member. You can click the join button below the video. You can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/talk heathen to me. We now have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. You can visit tiny.cc AEN podcasts. You can become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Talk Heathen FG. And what we're going to do now, if you could join us in the ACD, I'm quite anxious to take a few comments and questions in our fan-run Discord server. at tiny.cc ACA Discord. And you can also check the newest version of the ACA show, The Non-Profits, which will air at 3 p.m. Central Time today at youtube.com/The Non-Profits. But now I really want to see that crew cam. I want to see the fine people who have made this show possible today, beavering away, working away there with their headphones on. Look at those wonderful headphones, an array of different brands. And the finest technology at their disposal. Oh, someone's just disappeared off the camera. Goodness knows what's happened there. Some kind of... Anyway, love rings. Let's get those love rings going, if possible. We're sending out love rings to the poor, unfortunate crew member who's just died on camera. We hope that they can be resurrected soon.
Yes.
And yeah, who knows? Maybe the next show will be one where we can be convinced to adopt a theist position, but it wasn't this one. We just need to thank our viewers. Feel free to call in again in future shows if you have an argument that you'd like us to consider. Whether or not you believe, if you are an essential worker, we want to thank you. If you don't believe, this is your community. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Take care.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.